you got in here and first said that, so maybe. Okay, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. Hi, my name is Scrivo. I am a moderator of the Link to the Past boards on speedrun.com, and I am here to provide information on how to set up RetroArch emulator for running a Link to the Past. RetroArch is a emulator for multiple systems, multiple consoles, that is intended to provide the best emulation experience possible across a variety of consoles, and it has a few features that make it desirable over other emulators, some of which are good for speedrunning Link to the Past, and some of them are actually not acceptable for use in the speedrun community. One of the things that anybody who has ever run an emulator knows about is something called input delay. Basically, the time between when you press a button and when the action is actually taken by your character in game. Input delay has been a complaint of emulator users for as long as emulators have been out, and RetroArch has been one of, if not the best emulator for addressing this concern. And they do this in two ways, one of which is acceptable, and I will be showing you, and one of which is newer, but not acceptable. To start with, the baseline for what is considered an acceptable run on the Link to the Past leaderboards has always been, can you do it on a stock cartridge, console, controller? If you can do it on a stock cartridge, console, and controller, you can do it in an emulator. One of the things with a stock cartridge, console, controller is that there is inherent input delay for every game on the Super Nintendo. Sometimes it's 1 frame, sometimes it's 2 frames, sometimes it's more. I don't know the exact value for Link to the Past. I haven't done the science behind that, but there is at least 1 inherent frame of input delay. And RetroArch has introduced a feature called Run Ahead to eliminate that inherent input delay. It essentially runs multiple copies of your emulator in parallel, a number of frames advanced from where you are presently, to allow you to use some behind the scenes save state and load state magic that's automated to eliminate that inherent input delay, to bring you down to 0 frames of input delay. While that is fantastic from a emulator technology standpoint, it is a feature on an emulator that is not achievable on a stock cartridge, console, and controller. And because of that, the run ahead feature is not allowed for Link to the Past speedrunning if you wish for your run to be submitted and accepted to the speedrun.com boards. You are more than welcome to do whatever you want for your own personal edification, but for the speedrun.com boards, we are not going to allow the run ahead feature because it provides you an advantage over original hardware. That said, there are other features of RetroArch that I will show you here that basically will reduce the input delay that you would normally get from an emulator and either mitigate it partially or, depending on the power of your computer, almost entirely. So to start with, when you start RetroArch, when you first install it and fire it up, you're going to get this screen, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense. The first thing that you need to know is that RetroArch runs on cores. Basically, you load a core based off of what you want to emulate and which emulator core you want to use to do it. So in this particular case, we're going to be doing a Super Nintendo game. So we're going to go ahead and load a core. I've already got mine installed, but normally when you start, there will be nothing here. You will go to download core, and you'll see all of these options. You want to go down to Nintendo, SNES/Famicom. I personally recommend the base SNES 9X core. It is the one that I have had the best luck with. I am not saying it is the best. I am saying it is the one that me personally, have had the best luck with. Obviously, Huygen and BeastNest cores are also good. I just don't personally have experience with them. So I would suggest that you start with the SNES 9X core. There are 5 SNES 9X cores that are different versions of SNES 9X. This one here will be the latest version of SNES 9X. So going to select that and it will download. And then we're going to go back to our main menu. And now we can load a core and select SNES 9X, and you'll see down at the bottom that we are now using SNES 9X 1.56.1. And it also gives kind of a CRC check of the core to make sure that it hasn't been modified. So now there are some settings that you'll want to change. The first, if you go to this second gear and you go down to video, the first one is vertical refresh rate. The Super Nintendo does not run at 60 frames a second. It runs at 60.098 something. So you'll want to adjust this vertical refresh rate to 60.099. Unfortunately, you can only adjust this by thousandths at a time. I have not found a way to adjust it by typing in, so just use your left and right to up this to 60.099. Then you will want to go down to threaded video and turn this off. You will want VSync to be turned on. Hard GPU sync should be on. And now frame delay is kind of the secret sauce behind RetroArch input delay mitigation. This is basically a delay of how many milliseconds after VSync before actually emulating a frame. You can go up to 15. The higher you can go, the better. But the higher number comes at the cost of taxing your system a little bit. So if you can go up to 15, great. If you can only go up to 6 or 7, it's still going to be better than a stock emulator. So I'm going to go ahead and try 7 here. Other than that, you can leave pretty much all the other settings the same. You can go to audio. You'll want to make sure that audio sync is set to on. If you set it to off, you might get some weird frame rates. If you go to input, you can go, a thing that I suggest is setting your max users down to 1. If you're never going to use the second player controller, just make sure that you don't end up with extra key bindings on player 4 or something. And then you can go to user 1 binds and set all of your bindings for your controller. If you are going to run categories like 2x or any category that modifies the frame rate, you'll also want to know about this fast forward toggle. This is how you will activate 2x. So I'll cover it just so it's there. Now, this is the feature that you need to make sure is off. Under latency, run ahead to reduce latency. It must be off. Run ahead, use second instance must be off. You will, if you get a top 20% time, there are a few things that we ask you to show, such as your input configuration. If you are using RetroArch, you will also need to show that run ahead to reduce latency is off. You just will bring up this menu after your run and show this menu, show that it is off. If you're running 2x, you'll want to come to frame throttle and set this to 2x. Under on-screen display, you will want to do display frame rate. You can do some other stuff, I believe, down here to possibly make that text bigger or smaller. I don't know those details. I am just happy with the big gaudy yellow one. You do not need to do anything like frame count. It is wholly unnecessary. Other than that, none of the other settings should really need to be touched. So once you have done that and you have a core and you have your settings in place, you can load content. And there you go. Now, I have not played around with how high I can set my input delay. So you may see frame dips, but I also have some weird filtering turned on. Let me turn that off. Good thing you cleaned out that directory before the stream. Bilinear filtering off. There we go. Crispy emulator pixels. But now we have, it's running at a nice 60 frames a second. I'm actually going to see if this works. Nope, I crashed RetroArch by trying to drag a ROM into it. Let me reload it. Okay. So load core, SNES 9X. Load content. We'll load the practice hack. Make sure those settings all stuck. Yeah. When it crashed, it didn't save any of my settings, so we'll set this back up. Like I said, there's no good way. In the spirit of all tutorials, you must have some sort of technical difficulty. Vertical sync on, threaded video off, GPU sync off, frame delay set to 7. Run ahead off, keybinds are on screen display, display frame rate, show frame count off, load content. Oh, video bilinear filter off. Yeah, there's a config file, but it is it's kind of messy. We might get a config file posted in the speedrun.com resources, and it also affected by which core you run. So let's so see it sticks right around 60 frames. If you see dips, then that is when you need to talk about lowering the frame delay, but you can also try to raise it. As far as a good test of input lag, I want a big open room. Yeah, Hellway's good. Well, so, see, I want a big room that I can bonk in. Okay. So, I'm going to, with that frame delay on, I'm going to try to cancel my dash as close to that wall as possible. Now, we will turn frame delay off. And now I cannot cancel my dash there to save my life. So, I'm going to see how high I can actually crank it up before I start seeing effects. And you'll also, this will probably show what happens if you, see, if you turn it too high, this is what happens. So, menu. The game is really loud in my ears. I hope it's not that loud on stream. Of course I get that RNG. There we go. Look at that. Easy every time. So, you're going to get that's awful. You're going to get something below 60. If you see it going below 60.1, that means that you are being affected by the frame delay a bit. So you kind of have a trade-off depending on how powerful your computer is. Do you want higher frame delay, lower input delay, but possibly be running at only 60.0? If you can run at 15 frame delay and still get 60.1 frame rate, then congrats. But that is how to set up RetroArch for Link to the Past speedrunning. That's where I'm going to cut off the video unless there are any good questions that come from the chat. I was Scrivo, and I will continue to be that. Eric Clapton. Or Bob Marley, depending on your favorite version of the song. So apparently there are no good questions. Dumb worm. What are the inputs for this? How many in before I get the free ups? Four. 5. 6. 7. 8. Okay, I'm 8 in. Now what? Is it upright too? What was your question? Where have all the cowboys gone? No, I have not actually seen the input display for RetroArch. Okay, now one more. And down. The cowboys got lost in Paula Cole's armpit hair. Yes, but you can get your input display from something other than the emulator. Hey. For top 20% times, I believe input display is required. Okay. It's been a while since we've gotten the top 20% emulator time, so. Oh, is it show bindings that's required? Okay. RetroArch overlay input. Let's open that up. Oh, that's not terrible. I mean, what do you mean takes up the entire screen? What am I seeing? Oh. Oh, I just saw the little L box in the top left. I thought that was all it was. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, that's awful. I thought it was just this little box in the top left because for whatever reason, it... Oh, wow. I was zoomed in to like 1,000% or something, and all I could see was the magic bar and the L box at the top. Wow, that's miserable. Nice. Yeah, never use that. All right, so here's the real test. I got the first try buffer though, so there we go. So RetroArch is the emulator of choice of mirror jumpers everywhere. Easy trick, easy emulator. Well, I'm gonna go and check out this fresh TB Ham PB run, but that has been how to use the RetroArch emulator for Link to the Past speedrunning. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, the Discord is open. There is usually somebody around that can help you out. And hopefully this helps you with your input delay questions and or concerns. So thanks for watching. Bye.